Hey everyone. Okay, we're back. I just mixed up a palette. I've got my complements, my red green working, but like we said, green is actually made from yellow and blue, so I have the full primary wheel, but I want to kind of keep this as my home base, if you will. Okay, so I'm gonna start the direct painting. I'll turn my palette so that you can see the colors here. Hopefully we're in frame there. Okay, so like we did on the black and white one, I started with the negative space and thought if I can set the tone or the temperament or the mood for the painting, the value scale, then I can build on top the rest of the values where I want. And it's just so much easier to start that kind of boring space. So I have my flat synthetic brush that I had from earlier. I did have a little black on my palette, and I want to make this pretty dark. So I've started with my palette here. I'm going to pull a little more of the dark donut sprinkles worth. I'm going to grab a little of my green and do a shade. A tint is plus white, a tone is plus gray, a shade is plus black. And because I'm doing a direct painting, I can mix all of these together now because they'll all kind of dry at the same time. So I'm going to grab a little linseed oil. There's some in there from the other day. And grab that dark, pretty green. We talked about how if we use these flats, we can cut pretty straight edges. And I am gonna mix up more of that paint. I like that color. And I'm gonna try to make it kind of an ombre effect, darker to lighter. And I used my homemade green, which was mostly blue and a little yellow. So I'm gonna make a little more. So half the trick of painting is getting used to the mixing, knowing how much you need. I'll put that there. Grab a little of my black. Looks pretty good. I'm trying to fill in the tooth of the canvas. I'm gonna grab a little blue just to give it a little complexity. I think there's a glare. Can you see that? It's kind of fun. I have a little more linseed oil. Okay, I want it lighter over here. And in the black and white one, I just added the solvents and the mediums to make it lighter. But here, I'm going to get a little crazy and I'm going to add a little white. And I'm going to make a neutralized greenish gray. Add a little more white. And I want to spend a lot of time building this negative space so that it builds a home for my positive shape. using that linseed oil to move the pigment around. And now I'm building a kind of value scale, but I'm using chroma. I'm going to add more white. There was a little red contaminating my linseed oil from the other day. And that's the opposite of green, so it's kind of canceling it out, making it a little grayer. Again, I'm really trying to fill those canvas, the little teeth, the little holes there. And I spend a lot of time getting that negative space into something that is kind of dreamy or has some brush strokes. The paint that's on my brush, I'm kind of moving a little over here so it's got some modeling. If I wanted to add a little bit of that concrete floor, I could add some little complexities and so forth. Okay, so I'm going to move into the boring again. I'm going to come into the table. And here I still have this grayish color, so I want to create the same family. Clean this off. I'm going to grab all my white. Use what's left over there. What a pretty gray. There's hardly any black in there anymore, but it's got this really beautiful neutralized color. Trying to make sure that there's a really pretty edge the way that it cuts, and that I don't have that raw canvas showing through. I keep glancing at my picture. And then it gets a little darker, so I'm going to grab a little of that green. Here I'm mixing with my brush. This gets a little darker. In my photo, it has a little bit of a pink glow. So I might actually use the greens over here and then warm that up. I'm going to grab a tiny, tiny bit of red, like the smallest. I could maybe warm that up some more. I'm going to leave it for now. Yeah, I'm gonna warm it up. Right now, I'm only using the cadmium, but when I get to the apple, I think I'm going to switch to using some of the alizarin. Hopefully you can see that, where it's kind of getting that warmer quality. I'm going to soften this. I'm going to just drag over it just a little. Kind of shifts to a little more yellow. Grab some yellow. So by having this palette pre-mixed, I'm just kind of mixing these neutrals. And there's always like this kind of mother color, if you will, this beginning color. And then it gets really dark in here. Oops, almost dropped that. I'm going to add a little black. And this, I keep kind of working into this negative space color. I'm going to add a little bit of my green. So there's really no right way to do this now. Now it's like a little blue. You are just trying to think in values of dark and light. I might have to darken this, yeah. I'm going to switch to a new brush. I should have put a little light right here, and I didn't, so I'm going to try and make that happen. Just use a little of the white. And then I want to darken all of these yet still. I had this smaller brush from earlier with black in it. Okay, I think I'm going to leave my shadow alone for now, and then I can darken it as I go. But I'm going to shift into my apple. Okay, so I have the cad here from earlier, and here's my alizarin. So I'm going to make it a little more complicated by using a warm red and a cool red. I think you can see on the palette how they're a little different. And I think I'm going to start there's a little of the cadmium with a bit of black. And I'm going to grab some of this green to desaturate it a little. I'm going to paint my middles. Added a little linseed oil. I got too much, so I'm going to pull some out with another brush. A little runny. And I want to now go grab my alizarin, kind of mix it into that family. I'm going to grab a little of my darker green, a little blue, oh yeah, you can see the alizarin made like a violet. And I'm still trying to kind of squint through values. There's a little more CAD. So now I'm kind of making like a red value scale. I don't really want to overwork it. I'm going to use a lot of straight cadmium right here. I'm going to use a little of this orange that I made. So I'm, in the end, using a full color palette, but it started, this is a dry brush, I don't like where that went, so I'm kind of cleaning it up. But I started with that green and red mix. And that became the kind of the family for all of it. I want to leave it kind of brush strokey, taking this peachy yellow. I'm leaving my brush strokes kind of hatched, and I'm letting them kind of pick up the paint that's next to them and shifting them from one value shift to the next. Put a little more dark here. I'm going to grab some yellow. I'm trying to let the negative and the positive space kind of interchange a little bit. Keep looking at my picture. Grab a little black. This is where it gets darker. There's that kind of bright green. I'm trying not to squish the paint underneath, but to kind of float it. I'm using that high chroma green for like a bright more of the alizarin and the CAD kind of mixed together. I'm going to grab a little black. I'm going to switch to a different brush, get a little brightness back in there. I'm going to take this small brush. I'm out of white. I want some white. We are only using transparent white right now. Oh, excuse me, titanium white right now. I will talk about the transparent white in another video, but I don't want to get it too confused. So I'm going to grab a big chunk of white. Kind of floating it over the top where there's a couple highlights. Kind of lose this edge. I've got my brush that had the negative space color on it. I kind of brought some of that in there. So these should be pretty playful. add a little, I'm kind of opening and closing a couple edges at the end. Gonna reshape a couple spots. I put some dark black kind of under the shadow again. Put a couple more negative space. Get a little highlight here. Okay, I think I'm gonna leave it like that for now. I'm gonna hold it up so you guys can see it. That is how we can make an indirect painting. And it's not that I'm trying to copy the apple exactly, which I could, like I could slow down and go a little more carefully with the value shifts, but I mostly want to get the big core values and paint it all at once, alla prima, direct painting, and try to get the values. Notice that I only used the almost solid white in a few spots for highlights, but I used these higher chroma bright values to kind of bring some of it to life. So these should be really fun. If you get frustrated and it gets muddy, take your towel and wipe it off. You can take your palette knife and scrape off paint if it gets too thick. There's really no wrong way to do this. You might want to do it twice or 3 times. And they'll be different every time, which can be kind of fun. Okay, I'll take pictures of these and then you can see them maybe hopefully without the glare. And then we're going to come back when this one dries. We'll mix up the black, white, and gray value scale, repaint it, and then we'll glaze it. And then this one's going to hopefully look more naturalistic than this direct painting, alla prima painting. And I only used the linseed oil mostly because I just forgot to open these. But you could use any of these because it's all mixed together. Because I use the linseed oil, it's going to take a little while to dry. Okay, I'm going to go clean my brushes. I'm going to scoop up my warms and cools in case I want to work back into this and see if I can save some of these. I'll drizzle, that's a lot of paint right there. Drizzle some linseed oil over them. If I can fit it in my freezer, I will. I'm going to take all these. Oh, look at that super pretty gray. Whoa. That's beautiful. Gray, green. Oh, I need to put some of that in there. Yeah, that's kind of fun. Just a little added because it's such a pretty color. That's why we paint, right? Because we can make all these fun choices. Squeeze all that paint out because there's a lot of paint in there. I can use this beautiful color for some negative space later. I'll squeeze out these reds. Maybe what I'll do is with these extra paints, I could quickly, like on a piece of scrap paper that I put some acrylic on and gesso, or on another piece of canvas paper, I could quickly do another little direct painting with these. Ooh, that's pretty too. Okay, yeah, I'll drizzle a little bit of linseed oil on them. I'll clean my brushes, and I'll see you back when we do the glaze, or no, the grayscale on our black and white one. There they are. Okay, we'll see you soon. Bye.